I'm now calling the Tuesday, March 19th, 2024 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to order. The time is 7:03 p.m. Please note we're conducting a hybrid meeting, which allows staff and members of the public to attend this meeting via virtual teleconference. The hybrid meeting will be video recorded and posted on the district's website. Because we're video conferencing, we will follow a strict protocol for the benefit of the recording. I will indicate when commissioners, staff, presenters, and the public will provide comments. If you have called into the meeting and are not using a webcam, please state your name prior to providing your comment for the benefit of the recording. Please practice considerate video conferencing etiquette, both us here and those on the line, by muting your line when you're not speaking and limiting distracted behavior on camera. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
Okay, good evening, commissioners, and I will be conducting the roll call this evening in the same order. Please remember the order so that you are prepared to provide your comments or vote. President Spreen.
Here.
Vice President Sherlock. Commissioner Basigi.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yeah.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Commissioner Warrant.
Here.
And we have 6 commissioners present, 1 absent. For the benefit of the recording, I will also conduct a presenters, consultants, and staff roll call. Santa Clara County Fire Department Assistant Fire Chief Glass.
Good evening, present.
Okay, Municipal Resource Group Strategic Planning Consultant Scott is in the audience. Thank you. Community Education Risk Reduction Manager Gluhan.
Present.
Emergency Services Manager BB.
Present.
Programs Planning and Grants Manager Woods.
Present.
Technical Analyst Project Manager Cronin.
Present.
Operation Project Manager Russell. Okay. General Analyst Georgie.
Present.
Field Manager Harmon.
Here.
Technical Data Analyst Martinez is here. Community Outreach event. No, she's not here. Sorry. Finance Manager Moriali.
Present.
Thank you. General Manager Logan.
Present.
Deputy County Counsel Forbath.
Present.
Okay. And presenters, consultants, and staff are accounted for.
Great. Thank you, District Clerk Vargas. Now moving on to item 2, Commission President remarks. All I want to say is you might notice that for those of you here in the building, we have fewer sort of staff present today and more of them are online. That's because right now we're in the middle of a field operation. The Black Mountain work is going on today, this week. It was going on today. It'll go on tomorrow. And that way they're closer. They have to get there in the morning, field operations. So they're sort of geared up for that and less time to sort of come here and arrange that. But that's why they're all dialed in here. So we really appreciate that that's going on. And from what I hear, it's going very well. So thank you for those. And I'm sure we'll be hearing reports on that next time. Second thing I'll mention is that, as you noticed last month, we're sort of evolving the meeting to make sure it's efficient. And when it comes to the reports, last month we started doing some of them on 6-month reports. And this month what we're doing is we're continuing that trend. We're diving deep in sort of one section, but we did want to say that there are things that we thought every commissioner should know every month or stuff that's very timely. So there will be a number of reports, but they're geared more to what you need to know this month. So we are trying to evolve that to make sure it's efficient use of everyone's time and yet still be transparent with what's going on and fully communicative. And so we hope that'll work out well again. That's all I have to say. We'll move on to item 3, public comment. Persons wishing to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items not on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on the next available agenda. District policy is to limit public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker, unless the number of speakers requires the commission president to impose shorter time limits. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? I see no one in the building. Anyone online?
I do not see anybody online.
Okay, great. In that case, we will move right on to item 4, agenda amendments and changes. Are there any comments from staff on this item? I didn't expect any. Any commissioners like to make any changes to the order of the agenda? In that case, we will move directly on to item 5, which is the consent calendar. Are there any comments from staff on the consent calendar items? Seeing none, are there any questions from commission on these items? Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion. Will the commissioner making the motion and the commissioner seconding the motion please state your names?
Warren moves. Basigi second.
CG second. Thank you. We'll save it for the next one. So this item's open for discussion. Any discussion from the commission? Not expecting any. Any public comment on the consent calendar items?
I do not see any.
In that case, no further discussion. We will vote. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct a roll call.
President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Right, and the motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Great. Moving on to item 6. If we haven't given him whiplash from how fast we got here, it's time for the fire chief report. So this is the monthly fire chief for February, the monthly fire chief report for February 2024. This will be Assistant Fire Chief Glass providing us a report.
Oh, you sharing?
There we go. All right. Good evening, everybody. Good to be back with you. I'll be presenting this evening's fire chief report. This is for February 2024. Obviously, February is a much shorter month than the other months of the year, and we see less calls because we have less days of the month. So again, February 2024, we're showing about 70 calls, staying pretty consistent with about 50-60% of those being EMS related, another 35 being service calls. Fire alarms coming in at 7%, and then trailing, we have hazardous condition, fire, and other. You can see the disbursement of calls pretty consistent. Response times are looking overall really good. We had under that 7-minute 59 mark. When we look at the rural densities, we're looking for 11:59. So again, response times looking really good there, and 75, 76, and rescue 74. So we didn't have any move-up companies or any outside agencies running calls in the month of February. Those are all going to be the local resources that are responding within the fire district. No dollar loss, which is always a good sign. If I draw your attention to the map, you'll see we had one fire dispatch. That was for smoke in the area of Magdalena and 280. They arrived at scene to find fog to be confused as smoke. And again, all in all, a pretty slow month, which is what we like to hear in our business. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions specific to the report.
Great. Any questions or discussion from the commission? Any public comment on this report?
No, I do not see any. Oh, wait, no, I spoke too soon. There is one comment from Alan Epstein.
Alan, you've got the floor. There you go.
Yes, a question for the rural response time. I noticed that R74 had an average time of 10 with 15 calls. Looking at the call map, half the calls seem to be within minutes of the fire station, which seems to imply that the other half of the calls must have taken substantially longer than the average response time. Once upon a time, the report used to show the actual call times for the calls. It doesn't show that anymore. It only shows the averages, but I'm just curious as whether or not there were some calls that were especially long and whether there was any particular reasons for them. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Well, unless you want to mention something, Chief Glass, we can take that up and we can look for that and see if there are any specific items and bring it up next month.
Yeah,
If there are
we'd
any
be
special
happy to-
items.
I can bring the map back up and I can point out some of those longer response time areas that may have thrown it off. But again, without having the time to take the deep dive and to look at exactly how many calls and what that distribution looks like, I would just be speculating at this point. I'm happy to share the map again and speak to it briefly if you want, but I think we know those areas. They're off the Page Mill corridor on the north and northwest sides of the fire district.
I think that's sufficient. We don't need to speculate on each one. And I do recognize the point that we want to make sure that the overall, there aren't any sort of problem areas. And so we appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, thank you. We will, in that case, thank you, Chief Glass. We will move on to item 7, the General Manager report.
Thank you, Board President Spreen and commissioners, staff, public. I'd like to have you take a look at the slide on the cover. There you go. And this is taken on March 11th at the organizational planning meeting that we had. And what you'll see here is the Los Altos Hills Orchards. And just to think that this is the treasure that's protected by the Los Altos Hills County Fire District initiatives with the assistance of the community and stakeholders. So I thought that was a nice photo that just lets you know again that all of this wilderness and beauty of nature is what we're here to preserve and protect. Next slide, please, which is the events, updates, and activities. Just wanted to point out a couple of things here. On March 4th, we had the opportunity to meet quarterly with the Special Districts Association representatives, and we hear and share updates and ideas. In March, Victoria, Beebe, and Eugenia Woods discussed their service area projects. So I wanted to thank them for assisting with that meeting. And then you'll also see that there was a fire science webinar series, and that's been going on for a number of years. Staff attends that as they have time in their schedule, and it keeps us up to date with the latest research and trends in fire science. And the program is provided by California Berkeley University. So we're appreciative of that. Some other things just to mention: on March 13th, we had an employee benefits meeting. This was an onboarding meeting to talk about the EAP program that was approved by the Board of Commissioners. Staff attended that. And then I've been meeting at the county offices to review projects and programs of the semi-annual reports that you heard in February. And also I'll be attending county meetings on a monthly basis to talk with the county executive about responsibilities for the county fire districts. Next slide, please, are the hydrants, district hydrants. And here is an update on the completion of these hydrant repairs that were referenced at the February Commission meeting. And then if you'll move to the next slide, this is our organizational planning cadence slide. And I just wanted to go through and talk with you a little bit about what we're doing with cadence in the organization to really develop a process by which we do our organizational planning. So this slide depicts the cadence of the all-day organizational planning meeting for service area teams. And the cadence started with the adoption of the fiscal year 23-24 budget in June of 23. And when we received the budget, the Los Altos Hills team met on August the 4th, 2023, to organize the district services and teams into service areas with program components, assign managers, and team members and projects. And then from that initial all-day planning session, the work plan and 8 chapters were developed and presented to the Commission on October of 2023. 8 months later, which was February 2024, which was the last Commission meeting, the service area semi-annual reports were presented. The organizational planning meeting number 2 was scheduled and planned for March 11th, 2024. That was just a week or so ago. This report is a summary of the planning meeting number 2 held a week ago. So this cadence will be repeated with adoption of the budget this coming June of 2024, followed by organizational planning meeting number 3 in August, and then in February, a semi-annual report in February of 2025, and then an organizational planning meeting number 4 for team building and review of key accomplishments and key objectives for the work plan for 25-26. So this is the planning cadence so that the teams, projects, and programs in the adopted budget are aligned with the strategic plan. So that's a lot of concept there. I thought I would just ask at this point, are there any questions on how we've developed this organizational planning cadence, and if it meets the needs of the Commission and sound okay, or any comments on that? Okay, very good. Next slide, please. Here you'll see the planning meeting held on March 11th at the Los Altos Hills TAFE House, which is a nonprofit facility available for use by the Packard Foundation. The team members participated in person and 2 members participated by Zoom. Here you will see the main meeting room, the screen. We attempted to be paperless, except for we did have paper copies of the agenda and the objectives for the meeting. Next slide, please. The session objectives were for the teams to learn about the other service area teams, were to understand the district program-based budget, so we had a Budget 101 session, to have familiarity with work plans and key objectives, to recognize how teams support each other, to have a clearer view of 3 months and the next 12 months ahead, to strengthen our team experience, and to determine opportunities, challenges, strategies, and vision. So next slide, please. Excellent lunch was enjoyed by all. We had many smiles and much learning occurred. And next slide. The themes for the planning meeting included team building, Budget 101, a highlight section where we highlighted key objectives in the work plan and accomplishments, a spotlight section where we made a spotlight of the service area teams and how they collaborate, and then visioning, and that was through a SWOT analysis. And then a comparison of the current SWOT analysis with the SWOT analysis in the strategic plan. The meeting had an ambitious agenda, not enough time, was future focused, and filled with collaborative energy. And at this point in the slide presentation, I'd like to call on Finance Manager Russ Moriali, who can provide comments from his perspective and particularly from the Budget 101 session that he provided to the team. Russ, you there?
Yes. Thanks, General Manager Logan and President Spreen and members of the commission. It was just a dynamic day from my perspective. We really saw the service area managers and all team members speak to how they can put the resources that they've been given to work in furthering the work plans. So one of the requests that came through last year was to better understand budgeting from a governmental standpoint, what makes up a governmental budget and how does our particular budget work for our district and where do we see it going. So we spent about 45 minutes on budgeting. And what came out of that was really just a discussion of how dollars are translated into outcomes, with the main theme being, from my perspective, that a budget is much more than dollars. It really is resources put back into the community and providing community services. There were a lot of great questions that came out of it. And one other outcome that came out of the Budget 101 discussion was a focus on where we're going with budgeting, not only from a technology standpoint, but from a model standpoint. So we spent a lot of time also talking about not only the work plans, but the service and program-based budgets, which is something that the county is actively pursuing as well, as we speak internally. And so you'll see later tonight when I discuss budget that the service and program area budgets will become a focus for us in 24-25. So with that, it was a thoroughly enjoyable day. I learned a lot. It was great hearing all the accomplishments and vision portrayed by the service area managers. So with that, that's my update. Thank you, General Manager Logan.
Thank you so much. What you've heard now is pretty much the operational aspects of the day. And now I'd like to turn it over to strategic planning consultant Marcy Scott. And what Marcy's going to do is take us to really the higher level organizational dimension of what this day represents and what all of the organizational planning days will represent. So Marcy, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
There you go.
You're on.
If you want to know about an organization, you read their budget, right? That's the way you really understand what an organization is and what it does. And I think Russ's presentation was one of the most highly rated of the day. It was very good, and it gave staff a very good foundation for the resource allocation here. But I'm here to add some context. And it may also inform some of the upcoming presentations on this agenda tonight, particularly in item 9. So I'll come back to that. But what this visual is the first planning session, as Jay mentioned, really was looking at the mission, the strategic plan, the community wildfire protection plan, which is our fire science guidance, and how those all led into the work plans that are divided up by service areas. And as you can see, it's very linear, but that meeting was really about alignment, that our work all leads back to the mission, and you can see how it's built to do that. And what we did in the most recent planning session was really moved to 3D. And the theme really was connectivity and looking at the connections that exist and what we can build in between the work plans and the service area teams. And in the next slide is a visual interpretation of that scenario. Next slide. Oh, sure. Oh. It's working. Is it working? Yeah. I'll talk loud.
Yes, there you go.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh. So here is the 3D pictorial of what our focus was in this most recent session. And if you look at the very middle of the slide, the budget, that again is all the resources, but there are two-way arrows. So the budget funds activities in all of the ovals, but also the work that's being done informs the budget as well. And then the yellow arrows indicate how the certain service areas are working to help in some of the other service areas. So if you take the IHFR, for example, that supports the risk reduction programs, which part of the risk reduction is FireWise, and the IHFR chipping partners with FireWise, and also in the organizational infrastructure that includes the district parcel, and the IHFR informs the district parcel plan as well. So there's some cross connections there. And further, there's some other cross connections with the outreach and education oval, which provides a lot of communication materials for the other service teams. They make these amazing door hangers for walking the evacuation routes for the COEs. If the residents aren't home, they hang it on the door and leave materials about the evacuation route. They make materials for FireWise, also door hangers for those neighborhoods as well. So we really spent some time talking about how each of the service areas have some synergy with other areas and how the teams cross-support one another. And that's an area for future growth as well. And then we looked at the GIS analytics triangle. That produces all kinds of information that further informs our work plans and our service areas. So again, we really looked at those relationships. We talked about how those groups each work to better understand how they work in their own teams, and then how the work that they do supports each other. And, you know, one way to think about it is in the concept From Good to Great, one of the classic management books talks about the concept of the flywheel. And organizations don't become great overnight by one major action or event, but it's really through this, as they term it, relentless pushing of a flywheel, turn upon turn, building momentum, and each turn of the flywheel builds upon the work performed. And so that's really how the district is moving forward. And what you'll see in agenda item 9, there'll be a presentation about the evacuation routes. The complexity that is in this evacuation route arena is just amazing. You know, I'm familiar with the work that gets done. I watch the meetings, but I had no idea what is entailed in these evacuation routes and how that work moves through. The team is very efficient and it is a lot of work. So anyways, these concepts were really helpful for us thinking about how we continue to grow and match our resources so that we can, again, tie it all back to the mission and get back to the very beginning slide, which is the protection of this area and the homes and the people here. Let me see if I have any other notes. So with that, I'll conclude my overall context comments, but we're happy to respond to any questions.
Any comments from commissioners? I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, very successful meeting. And I just want to thank all the service area teams, the consultants, and the commission for the support that you provide to us and allow us to form these kinds of relationships, bonding team members, and build the organization in a way that's going to be sustainable, because I do know that that's one of the primary missions. So thank you for your support in doing that. Thanks. End of report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any public comment on the general manager report?
No, I do not see any.
Great. Okay. In that case, we'll move on to item 8, which is the finance and budget. This is an update on the fiscal year 24-25 final draft budget. Finance Manager Morale, could you please provide us a report?
As President Spring and members of the commission, thank you again for allowing me to speak to the budget. This is just a very quick update, 1 to 3 minutes or so. And it's just a receive and file report. Essentially, this report's intended to provide you an update as to where we have gone since our last meeting when we presented the budget to this commission on February 20th, 2024. And at that time, the commission approved what we call a final draft budget, which was to be forwarded, and it has been forwarded to the county. At that time, you might recall the budget included allocations of about $18.6 million and revenues of about $16.5 million, with a planned use of reserves of $2.1 million, respectively. As reported last time, the county and the district have agreed upon an entry point or a base budget entry point, which is something that took us much longer to achieve in the prior year. And that entry point is $16.3 million. So since our last report on the budget and our last meeting, we have provided the county with all the required line item budget line items, totaling $18.6 million as we reported to the district commission. And there were no changes as submitted to the OBA. Also, the district and the county have discussed and agreed upon what we call one-time and ongoing requests. Those one-time requests equal approximately $1.7 million and ongoing requests about $530,000. So they acknowledged those one-time requests and ongoing requests. And what they have done now at this point is they have started the process of their internal review, and they have submitted both our base budget and our one-time requests and our ongoing requests. They've gone through internal review, and then now they go into the pattern where they will be evaluated and then reported to us essentially that date being May 1st. So we're in this waiting pattern as we speak. And on May 1st, we'll find out what the recommended budget is. All indications are that our budget requests were received in good form and were fully defined and described in the format that the county wanted them in. So they were provided with a line item budget. And also we've had several meetings, and that being myself, General Manager Logan, Corey Vargas. We've had several meetings with them discussing our budget requests, answering questions to make sure that they were delivered in good form. So at this point, if I can put up the calendar, if you have that for us, Corey. Okay, and this is where we are. So everything with the check mark indicates what we've completed. As you know, we've gone through a series of public sessions and meetings on the budget. And our final draft budget, as promised at the last meeting, was delivered the day after the last meeting on February 21st. And between February 21st and today's date, again, we've had several meetings. We provide them with all the detailed information that they need in the form that they need it for their internal systems. And just late last week, the county acknowledged that they were all received in good form. And now we go into their process, which is their hearing process and review process. And we should hear back from them, the latest being May 1st, when they issued their recommended budget. Beyond May 1st, we are looking at the Board of Supervisors at the county's workshop taking place between May 13th and May 15th. Our tentative date for our district, we believe, although this can change, is May 15th. And then the Board of Supervisors will have budget hearings, and those are scheduled for June 10th, 11th, and 12th. And our tentative date for the district is June 11th. And then if that all goes as planned, we will return back to this commission on June 18th for adoption of the budget. So that's where we stand at this point in time. And I'm sure we'll be speaking with the county several more times between now and May. But at this point, we can happily report that we have provided them with all the information that they have required. There is one other date I do want to bring to your attention. It's has to do with roll forward requests. And those are items that we would not spend in fiscal year 23-24, most notably the funding of the fire truck. And those items are due to the county again on May 1st as well. And we will submit those roll forward requests to them on that date also. So that's the end of my report on the budget.
Thank you. Any comments or questions about the budget process? Appreciate how thorough you guys have been, and recognize there's a lot more work as these feedback comes back from the county. So thank you for that. Is there any public comments on the draft report, or on the finance report, I should say?
No, I am not seeing any.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item 8B, which is the establishing the fiscal year 24-25 special tax override, which I guess you'll explain, Corey, that this is our annual task.
Yes, so this is the tax override is, as Roger said, an annual necessary by the commission. So it's basically a history report for you right now. So as a result of Prop 13 back in June of 1978, the district lost 60% of its property tax revenue, and as a result did not have the funding needed in order to meet its commitments for fire protection. So in accordance with District Ordinance number 1, which is included in the agenda packet, and it was signed January of 1981, the district has the authority to levy a tax override should it be necessary. Now, as you know, the district currently has sufficient funds that we can meet our fire protection commitments. So that's why we recommend that the commission set this override tax rate at $0.
Vargas, any questions about this? Sorry, any questions about this for anybody? We all remember how this went last year. Would anyone like to, let's see, I'll now entertain a motion to set the fiscal year 24-25 special tax override at $0. Will the commissioner making the motion and the one seconding, please state your names.
Tyson moves item 8B as stated.
McDonald seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any public comment on this item? Expecting
I do
none.
not see
As
any.
a taxpayer, I'm very happy.
Yeah, exactly.
President Spreen, I have a question. I don't know if
Please.
this is appropriate or not. This goes back to Chief Glass's report
Mhm.
on the response times and Mr. Epstein's comment about response times. And I just wanted to educate people. I don't know if they know, like if there's a 911 call, there's 3 response times. There's code 1, which is basically you get in the fire engine and you just drive normal. You observe every stop sign. You take your time. It's like my cat locked my bedroom door and I'm trapped. Code 2 would be, I stub my toe. It hurts. I'm bleeding a little bit, but I think I'm okay. That's, again, you drive and you follow you stop at every stop sign. You take your time. You drive carefully because driving a big fire apparatus is dangerous. So that delays a response time. And then there's code 3 where it's lights and siren and you're going through intersections and you're going as fast as you can. So all those things affect the response time. And I apologize, I'm a little jet lagged. I should have brought that up when Mr. Epstein brought up that question, but that can greatly skew response times of a fire department. Because if you're getting a bunch of calls that are not life and death truly, the fire trucks will be going slower. Whereas if they are true emergencies, you'll be going as quick as you can and having a shorter response time. So
ironically, a slower month with less activity makes sense of the,
correct.
Might be
And the
longer.
less critical calls create longer response times. More critical calls create more rapid response times. or
Commissioners,
shorter
can I, sorry to interject. I think that's a really
yeah, we got enough.
useful clarification, Commissioner McDonald. My recommendation just for Brown Act compliance is that we hold this discussion. It sounded like Assistant Chief Glass and President Spreen were both interested in a agenda item or a discussion of this in a subsequent meeting. So I would just suggest that we keep it. We plan to
sense.
take that
Yeah,
up
no,
at
it
that
was just-
time, so that we stay on the current agenda item. But it's a
Thanks.
great piece of
No, I
information,
apologize
Commissioner
for that.
McDonald.
No problem. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate we're trying to bring information out, but we do want to stay on the agenda. So thank you. Thank you, both of you. So we have, I think we've had no public comment. So we are, unless we have any district commission
Well,
comment.
there is a hand raised, but I believe it was to discuss that item. And as our county council just stated.
Great.
Yeah.
In that case, we will move to the vote.
Yep. All right. President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji, Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Great. And the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 9A, reports on emergency services, projects, programs, and events. Let's see, Emergency Services Manager Beebe will be providing a report to us.
Hi, good evening, President Spreen, Vice President Sherlock, Commissioners, staff, and public. As I wait for my slides to come up, I am going to be talking tonight under my Emergency Services Manager report and focus really on emergency preparedness and volunteer programs as the highlight, as much of our focus for the outreach team and other district staff has been geared towards these areas this month. Next slide, please. Our district Outreach Emergency Preparedness Series has shifted from inclement weather preparedness to gearing up for wildfire season. Our March 2nd home hardening series, taught by Captain Russell and assisted by Captain Gluen, had 15 in attendance. Our next presentation is scheduled for April 27th at 10 a.m. here in Town Hall, Council Chambers, and we be presented by Captain Gluen and focus on defensible space. It will also be the inaugural public viewing of the defensible space model. So please help us market this upcoming event to your neighbors. Next slide, please. Upcoming this next weekend is our first CERT 2024 exercise. We're going to be focusing on back to basics, focusing on activation, ARC check-in, staging, etc. We have a pre-exercise training team that's been working really hard on creating these excellent diagrams you see on the slide to help people understand different flows that happen within a disaster response, especially at the ARC area. So more to follow after our exercise, but I wanted to really thank the exercise team of Steve Goldenberg, Christine Fawcett, and Bridget Caron for really putting together some very helpful tools for our certs as we go through that exercise. Next slide, please. Over the past weekend, the district hosted our 5th Teen Cert Academy in collaboration with the Teen Cert Board, Mountain View Cert, Los Altos Cert, Santa Clara County Fire, Rescue 75 and Rescue 74, and Los Altos High School. I would like to give a huge thank you to General Analyst Georgie for her assistance all weekend, as well as District Staff Rendler, who came to help with some various tasks on Saturday, Captain Russell and Captain Cronin, who came and ran our triage and fire safety incident areas. The Teen Cert Board Incident Commander Anthony ran the exercise within the exercise by commanding his command staff of Teen Cert Board members throughout the entire weekend. And just to give you some backstory, because we're going to show you a photo journal, we kind of had to put it together last minute for you guys, but a little sneak peek of what's going to be coming up. So the weekend schedule was Friday, 3 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., Saturday 9 to 5, and wrapping up on Sunday 9 to 2. The focus of the training was not only to teach basic CERT skills, but also to teach them how to work in teams with other teams that they might not be friends with or know, and also learn how to function within a CERT incident command team. We created a neighborhood complete with maps. They were assigned into teams. They didn't get to choose their teams. Had to choose an incident commander, ops person, a planning person, logistics, and a scribe role. And they also had to come up with a team name and a logo. And you're going to see some of those photos of the teams getting set up that we took on Friday night. They were given various tasks assigned to their chosen roles all weekend. As a team and individually, they took quizzes and overcame challenges, learned new life-saving skills, and were rewarded with Teen Cert bucks, which they could spend on breaks at the Prep Yourself store. Each team was given a Teen Cert response backpack with PPE vest, helmet, and a logoed go bag, which they could build during the weekend with the Prep Yourself store items. I will say the NOAA weather radio, the really nice one, was the hot ticket item. There was only one. So we got lots of feedback on needing more radios. This led to lots of healthy competition, and Emergency Services Manager BB being the first adult to ever tell him to stop saving the money and actually start spending it. There was a lot of saving going on. I needed them to spend the money. The weekend concluded with a 2-hour disaster response exercise in which the teams responded to various tasks as actual CERT response teams in and around the town hall. Overall, we graduated 19 students from Los Altos High, Block Middle School, Harker Academy, and Mountain View High School, all of whom received their CERT basic training certificate, 25 hours of community service hours, and Stop the Bleed certification. This was definitely the first time we've ever done a weekend in-person event. There was lots of lessons for staff, including lots of pivoting. We had some instructors that got ill at the last minute, stretching our planning capabilities, creating new relationships with other CERT team students and school staff. Thank you to Laura, Georgie, for putting together this this kind of quick sneak peek of what our weekend looked like. We're going to continue to create a gallery of photos and information to be uploaded for marketing on our YouTube, social media, and district website. As always, thank you to the commission and for the district staff for supporting this program and encouraging our teens to really learn how to be resilient and also to give back to their community. So could General Analyst Georgie please start the quick picture show for us? Thank you.
That's great. Wow. My gosh. Yeah.
That's the end of our report. There's a lot of things that we have more pictures of, but we will be continuing to update that on our different channels. So thank you again, and to report.
Once again, I don't know if it's my fear or my desire that the teen certs make the adults look bad. And any other comments or questions from the commission?
Just a lot of admiration for all the kids and of course Victoria.
Exactly. All the wrangling it must take. George?
Just want to say, I appreciate you sending the photos ahead of time. It looked like there was so much energy in the room, and even the young lady with the bloody arm looked like she was having fun.
And just a shout out to Victoria from the time of founding this program to taking it to the next level. It's incredible what you've done with this program, Victoria. You've really run with it. So congratulations and great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any.
Great. In that case, we'll move on to item 9B, which is reports on the community education and risk reduction programs, projects, and events. This will be Community Education and Risk Reduction Manager Gluen and Operations Project Manager Russell providing us these reports.
Evening, commissioners, staff, and public. I am pleased this evening to be here with our partners at the Fire Safe Council. Have Zaid Ortiz and Seth Chalet here with me this evening. And what we'd like to highlight is give you an update on just this past month, but also some really significant changes that we collaborated to improve the program. So if I could get the next slide, and Zaid, I'll have you speak to the progress we've made this last month, and that should be February 8th through March 5th.
Hello, commissioners and the public. So my name is Aida. I'm an HFR project manager for the Santa Clara Fire Safe Council that works in conjunction with the Los Altos Hills Fire District. So far, we have 1 HIZ assessment conducted, 2 HIZ assessments scheduled, 1 rebate process for $3,000, and 14 rebates processed since April 2023 for a total of $36,500.
Excellent. Thank you, Saeed. And as you can see, we've had a little bit of a slow, which makes sense with the weather. Very predictable. And Seth Chalet is going to speak to the changes that as a team we have come up with and adopted this last month.
Good evening, commissioners. Can you hear me? I hear or see nods, so I'll put that as a yes. And thank you. Yes, earlier this month, actually, the team from Los Altos Hills approached us relative to making changes to some of the content within the HIZ form, and also for us being able to increase our capacity. So upon review of the changes, we found those not structurally substantive, but it provided ease and better schedule and better utility for Los Altos Hills. So we had no problems accepting those changes in whole. And then what we were able to do is move from a 5 HIZ commitment to a 10 HIZ commitment per month. So in essence, we've been able to double our capacity. We've added some more staff to the Fire Safe Council in the last few months. And those staff have been certified in the NFPA 1024 and HIZ capabilities. In addition, some of the staff are also going to the Bowie Conference in Reno next week, and several of them are attending early to go through additional HIZ certification. So the Fire Safe Council is in the process of substantially increasing our capacity, and we wanted to make that extra capacity available to Los Altos Hills as needed. I think that's the essential highlights. If I've left anything out, let me know. I'm glad to answer any questions from the attendees.
Thank you so much, the Fire Safe Council, for all your collaboration with us. And that ends our report. If there are any questions?
Any comments, questions? Seeing none here. Any public comments?
No, I don't see any.
Great. Thank you both. We appreciate it. I should thank all three of you, actually. Let's see. Moving on, this item 9C, reports on programs, planning, and grants. Is that correct?
I have a Firewise update on item.
Great. I thought I was waiting.
Double I.
Okay.
I should have a couple slides coming up. Okay, so this is just going to be an update quickly for home ignition zone. Firewise, we just saw home ignition zone. One of the, again, tie-ins is getting participants, especially through Firewise, to participate, especially with these new rebates that we have since last year. So that's where we're really focusing when I do my monthly meetings. Next slide. So I did a little bit of change on my focus now. We currently have two established Firewise communities and 3 in the application process. So we have 5 kind of almost completed Firewise communities. We have a couple of more that are in the planning, Hidden Villa and Natoma being the 2 at the top. So I just kind of wanted to show you the area of where we have our established or our in process Firewise communities. And again, this is a Zone Haven base map, utilizing that kind of as an initial boundary. Next slide. So one of the changes I did a little bit is recruitment targets. We have an upcoming meeting, I believe April 20th of next month. It's a a community safety dinner. And that was last year where I got a lot of traction. So I wanted to go ahead and list areas in 3 zones. So I started out with sample roads from the northern zone, and you can see a few of the roads there listed. Alongside the E002, for instance, is the Zone Haven zone with just a couple of roads listed. So if you happen to see a road that you know someone lives on, or you live on it yourself and you're interested in getting some firewise started, I wanted to kind of encourage people by seeing the names of the streets, not just seeing the Zone Havens. So let's go to the next slide and we'll look at what I'm calling the central area, central zone. And again, here's some target streets in case you didn't know what streets, because the map doesn't really show the street names. So here's some of the names that you might recognize in the zones. And these are all zones that we don't currently have firewise activity that's really robust. And then my final zone, I'm calling it the south zone of the Los Altos Hill area. So this will be in that southern part of our district. And you have because of the unincorporated, we have 3 zones in our district that are SCC instead of LAH, but they're still inside the fire district. That's Hidden Villa, and then 15 and SCCE 001 and SCCE 002. So those are a little bit unique in their numbering, but those are some names, some sample names of those streets. And I think we have one more slide. And so this is just kind of the activity going on with Firewise. We had a Natoma Firewise meeting. They actually did a little activity last year, kind of took a lull, did a little reorg. So they had a really good turnout. They'd gone door to door to over 40 homes. They had about 20 residents, individual homes show up. I also continue to do Firewise office hour, which is the first Wednesday and the second Tuesday, where we do best practices, mostly getting to have a meet and greet so people get to know each other that are in Firewise in Los Altos Hills. And then remember to save the date because you will be getting an invitation to come out to the Los Altos Hills Residents and National Wildfire Preparedness Day, which is going to be an educational celebration around the residents that have done Firewise in Los Altos Hills. That's the end of my report. And if there's any questions, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Any comments? Any questions? A lot of activities still going on. Any public questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you so much. We'll move on to item 9C, reports on programs, planning, and grants. This will be Programs, Planning, and Grants Manager Woods providing us a report in person.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful. Next slide. Okay, we're happy to introduce the next 3 projects. That brings us to a total of 6 for 2024. That was the goal, was to have 6 evacuation routes this year. 4 of them were initial treatment and 2 are maintenance. Altamont is a maintenance project and Arastadero is a maintenance project. Hard to believe it's already been 2 years since those projects have been done. So 2 years is our traditional, if you will, maintenance cycle. And we verify that by doing Jackson's drones flyovers on the anniversary of each of the maintenance projects to verify what's regrown, how much is regrown and what has regrown. And Jackson will be out next commission meeting to go in depth and bring you images and show you how that is done and what we use it for. But that's what verified that 2 years was the right time to redo those, which makes sense if you think about how wet it's been the last 2 years. So that is those. And if we go to, I'm sorry, go back 1 second. When we look at the map, you'll see that they connect up to, some of the images are missing. They connect up to the existing routes that we've done and also run along the community strategic fuel breakdown in the south part. Now the next slide, please. So this slide is from our March 11th meeting. And what we are showing here is the pace of what it takes to pull off 6 projects in a year. It's a 16-week planning cycle. And then there's usually 4 to 8 days on the ground. So you can see that there's often 3 or 2 projects running at the same time. So the project managers are now doing multiple projects at the same time. We're not sequential anymore. So we've put 102 weeks worth of work into 50 work weeks in a year. And that's thanks to our staff here as well as the Fire Safe Council staff. Okay. So that's the first item, and we're going to skip to the next one. So if we have any, do we want to pause at the end, or are there questions at each item?
I encourage anyone to ask questions as we go. Well, in fact, I'll ask one. When it comes to the maintenance cycle, and do we find that in 2 years of growth, we'll have just as much material coming off of a route as we did the first time, or we presume it'll be less material, but just sort of because we're not relimbing things and.
Right. No, that's an excellent question. The 6 to 8 inch saplings, if you will, don't regrow in 2 years. So we don't have as much of the middle height, the 3 to 6 foot or 3 to 8 foot height plants that need taken out. We have more, what we're finding is we have more flashy fuels. So we need to get the grass, we need to get in there and get the broom and the thistle and the other things that regrow. So we're finding the low up to 18 inches comes back just as vigorously, if not more. The other thing that happens is people are more willing to participate. So perhaps we didn't get the depth that we needed on certain parcels the first time around, and now they want to be included the second time around. So we're increasing the number of ROEs that we get. So on those properties, yes, there would be, you know, the middle and the higher
Interesting.
vegetation.
Great, thanks.
So,
In fact, that's the question I had. I think she asked it.
Oh, okay.
You got to keep that microphone on, Jim.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I confused the red and white here.
I have the same confusion over which way is on, which way is
Yeah,
off.
but anyway, I was just going to ask you whether or not you do the door knocking on the maintenance cycle as you do in the first go around. And it
Yes.
sounds like you're doing that.
Mhm.
And this outreach is tremendously important because the more forward the residents come forward to reach us as opposed to us reaching them, it just makes the town ever more resilient, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And this time we have the community meetings. So 2 years ago, we weren't doing a community meeting for each evacuation route. So we've increased the postcard mailer. We've added the community meetings to try and bring more people on board and raise the understanding of what it takes to get these to be as effective as possible.
Great, thanks.
Okay, next slide. And the update you've all been waiting for. So on March 12th, Harmon, Ryan, and I went out with DUDEC to meet with MidPin and see the work that they had accomplished. So, and do some field verification. So this first slide shows, oh, and again, there's a couple graphics missing. I apologize. So the map you see in the back with the 4 panels is the full length of the community strategic field break. And these photos highlight from map panel 4. And the one on the far left, and if you look in the back corner, you can see Mora Road, which should sound familiar, Mora Ravensbury evacuation route. So this is the MidPin side looking at that trailhead. And then the photo in the center shows the limbing up and the understory treatment that they've been doing. It looks fantastic. And they've been slowly increasing the width based on their maintenance plan and the recommendations that we've been working with since 2021. And then the top photo I put in to show you what's being done along the fence lines. So along the fence lines, the resident and or MidPin, whoever's in charge of that, they're going down to the mineral earth along the fence lines. So you can see that that's almost like zone 0 treatment, if you will. So on that top photo on the left is a field, and then the grass is managed up to, and they've created a 5-foot buffer of mineral earth along the fence line. So for the next slide, I'd like to introduce Bill Halleck. You've heard me mention that MidPin has gone through some leadership change, and Bill and our team and Emily from Dudek, we all got to meet each other for the first time last week. So great synergy there, kind of getting us back on track. And Bill is going to talk about the images on this slide. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, thanks for having me. So I'm Bill Halleck. I am the Field Resource Specialist at Mid-Penn, and my job is fire resiliency and habitat restoration. And so what you see on this slide, we've done a couple of things, two things. We've caught up on the area by St. Joseph's Trail and around the other side. I think she had it in slide 4. And the second is we're going to be doing some more fuel breaks up along Shamish Trail. But these two areas that you see on the photographs are by Mora. And what we're doing this year is something we've never done before. We're going to be mowing that 3 times once a month to keep the habitat in good condition, and also a secondary benefit as fire. So I'm really pleased to be part of the partnership here, and Eugenia has done a great job. So what we've done, we've decided that every year we're going to be mowing these big fields and keeping the non-native grassland down. That's part of a biodiversity push that we're going to be doing. Eventually, after 3 years, we're going to be overseeding that with native grasses, so the fire hazard won't be so bad.
Excellent. And the other reason we've shown you the map panels again is panel 4 has been treated this spring. The thick yellow line that runs through them is the proposed community strategic field break, and panels 2 and 3 are going to be treated this fall. So moving right along, keeping, the maintenance up. And then panel 1, we're going to talk about on the next slide. That's where Hidden Villa is. But I'd like, just for a second, I just thought of something important for you folks. Can we go back a slide, Corey? I don't have it. That'll be the next meeting. Okay, let's go talk about Hidden Villa as the last part of the community strategic field break. One more slide. There we go. So on the same day that we went and met with Mid-Penn in the morning and toured their parts of the community strategic field break, we also went in the afternoon over to Hidden Villa. And what you see in this slide, the top pale yellow line was the originally proposed community strategic field break. And if you can look to the bottom layer there and see the satellite image underneath, you'll see that it runs right through the middle of their garden down in their lower area. And one of the things that we meant to accomplish with this, with having Dudek out with us in the field, was field verification. So this was a project design based on maps and satellite pictures and things. And then we went out and stomped around, so to speak. So we climbed and hiked, and we went up to the ridge line and picked up hitchhikers along the way. But the new line is more up on the ridge line, and it makes more sense to where to put it. And it's also a proposed area that Hidden Villa was now willing to accept. They were not willing to accept the original line for obvious reasons. You can't put a community strategic field break through a historic house. So, so that's what that is. The green area is the Hidden Villa lands. The light purple is the Mid-Penn parcels, and then that magenta parcel is a private parcel up top. So that's the next area we'll be working on to bring into line. And we've talked with the executive director, and he really wants to do this. And Mid-Penn and he have talked as well. So this is the next area that has support to figure out how we're going to bring field treatment to this section of the field break. And on the left there is what Hidden Villa has already done to their roadways within their properties. You can see the field treatment. The trees are all the way limbed up. There's no brush. There's no mid-range, mid-height plants there. They've left the large logs in places for environment, for critters, amphibians, and things like that, but everything else has been limbed up. So they're working on their whole road system to make it look like that. So it's working. The regionalism is working. It's very exciting. And I want to thank all our partners that have come together for this. So. Any questions? Want to see on the next report?
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Could you keep that slide up? Because the whole time I was looking at the black squiggly kind of circles and lines, and I kept waiting to find out what they were. But
Oh,
I think I see
sorry.
it in your little
Yeah.
thing here. That looks like that's a mid-pen separate fuels treatment project. And on the at the upper right, you can see that's a small version of the black lines there in 2, 3, and 4. So
Right.
can you
So
tell
those are
me
the
what's
mid-pen
that about?
projects. That's their treatment areas that they've done. You may recall last year I mentioned that they were doing botanical surveys for the species and things, and it takes a whole year growing cycle to figure out what's growing where and how to protect it. So those are the treatment areas that are in their work plan that the last 2 slides showed us up close.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions?
I have partially unrelated question. There's a lot of tree trimming going on along Foothill Expressway between Arstedero and farther south. I was wondering if that has anything to do with the plans that we have going.
No, it doesn't. The town is doing that.
Oh,
So there is the Los Altos, not Los Altos Hills. That I'd have to look at a map again.
yeah.
Ryan, do you have this one memorized? Yeah, it's just outside of the district.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think it's a town project for Los Altos.
Right.
Just clean up along there. Yep.
City project.
A city project. I'm sorry.
I have a question with the lower left picture. Why are we leaving all the dead wood on the ground? Because that typically, as that dries out, as fill moisture, becomes dangerously low and
Well, but
becomes-
you can also see the size of those logs, and we don't have a lot of flashy fuels up against them. And we do have to make choices for the environment. We can't just strip everything down. And especially Hidden Villa works as a preserve, and they have their organic garden and their farm and stuff. So they've chosen to leave the larger logs, the multi-hour fuels for
Salamanders.
amphibians
Yeah.
and to rot into the soil and refurbish the nutrients.
natural decomposition. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked a question just because as a homeowner, I have sort of forest areas where when oak trees die and fall, I can get some stuff cut away, but big logs, it'd be too expensive. So they're left here. So I'm glad to hear there's some reason for them, because at times I feel guilty having them there, but there is a weird balance.
Creatures living in
Exactly.
Mhm.
And first, I want to thank Mr. Halleck for being here, and I love seeing us have such a collaborative environment with them. I mean, I live right next to Mid-Penn, so I've been I've worked with them in different ways for many years. But to see a project of this scope, when this was first mentioned, this was considered a huge thing, way beyond the scale of what we could even consider. But the first time we really were trying to protect the entire district with a huge effort, and to see it really coming to fruition and all the pieces coming together, I think is a huge step. So thank you, Mr. Halleck, for being a part of this. This really is meaningful for us. And so thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
I'd like to comment too that when you bring the stakeholders together and you put this kind of plan together, and I'm glad you mentioned that, President Spreen, that it was a big ideal when we started. And now it's starting to take hold. It takes a lot of time and trust and relationship building with the various stakeholders and partners to do this. Because if you look at each one of these agencies, we all have different missions. We all have different perspectives. We all have different things we're trying to preserve. And Mid-Penn, and we are very respectful to Mid-Penn, they have a mission to preserve and protect the environment. That doesn't mean whacking and chopping down trees, but yet they also have the recognition that wildfire can do that all for them if they don't take certain precautionary measures. So as Eugenia and I have worked with Mid-Penn over the last couple of years, and Captain Gluen also, we've seen the transformation from Mid-Penn from going to strictly environmental, protect the species in the ground, to then being concerned about the wildfire and starting an actual wildfire mitigation program and vegetation management that they now have employed. And so we're leveraging and working with that partnership to do that. And then you get Hidden Villa in the middle of it, and they have their other kinds of initiatives that they're doing. So it's looking for those commonalities, looking for that collaboration that really makes what we do as a fire agency and as a community education and outreach agency speak to those other partners and to understand and be respectful for their missions. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, thank you, Mr. Halleck, for being here tonight.
No, it's a great message for residents to hear that there's a swath across the entire district that's being cared for fire prevention reasons. And so it's a great message. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Any public comments?
Yes, we have a comment from Alan Epstein.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. The public has heard, and we very much appreciate the fact that you're working diligently on the western border. And I'm very pleased to hear that the partnership is proceeding ahead well, because as you know, I've expressed on many occasions that I feel this is the most important project for the district to implement, and because it will provide protection for the western boundary for the entire town. So thank you so much for your efforts in this regard, and keep it up. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for the comment.
We'll just connect one other dots for you. The other Magdalena Sun Hills evacuation route project that we've announced on the earlier slides runs right along the community strategic fuel break and includes a trailhead. So it includes another place where Mid-Penn would evacuate hikers out. Now the road will be hardened. So we're connecting up all those evacuation routes from last year and this year that touch trailheads, so that it just adds another layer of safety and being able to evacuate if they need to.
Great. That's good to hear. Thank you very much. In that case, we will move on to, let's see, item 9D, which is reports on the IHFR field operations. This will be programs. This will also be, this will be quite a few of you. I don't know if, you're still up here, so you'll be starting this. Field Manager Harmon will also be involved, and Technical Analyst Project Manager Cronin will also provide the reports.
This one, thank you. So this one, I'll give you a few details on. This one, we were a planning partner. It's another regional project. And if you look at the map on the right, it's a little bit pale, but you'll see 280 is the large yellow interstate running diagonally across it. And if you can envision a page mill, which is very pale, but it ends up in the bottom in the red circle. So this project, we have now hardened Page Mill Road from I-280. This was the last 0.6 of a mile. It is now hardened all the way to Highway 35. So we have worked with, since I got here, we've worked with Palo Alto, we've worked with Mid-Penn, we've worked within our district. We did the part of the road hardening as a 2022 project, or excuse me, May 23 project on our portion of it. And this little 0.6 of a mile is the last piece of connectivity. So really, really exciting to put this together in a year. Well, the work in a year. It took another year of pre-planning for that. And you can see we had 2 fire safe councils engaged, as well as Mid-Penn in our district. So this is the area where you may recall from last September, the Page fire was, where that car was a roadside fire and it got into the vegetation and it got just over an acre. So now that area has been treated as well, where that fire. So this one I'm really, really excited to present to all of you. Lots of different folks came together, handled their portions of it. We were able to cross plan. We were able to provide CEQA to the fire safe councils, which made it be able to get done on time. They used their grant money. It just a really fantastic victory that this all came together with so many players. And the full report was put together by Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, and it's in your packets. There's lots of pictures and other types of details in that full report. And now I will hand it off to the project managers. I believe that Harmon's up next.
All right, I'll wait for the slide to come up. All right. So good evening, Commissioner, staff, and public. Regarding the Black Mountain Tourism evacuation route, since the last previous commission meeting, we successfully conducted a community webinar on the 27th of last month, engaging the project, or excuse me, engaging the public. Additionally, the project participation packets were distributed, some of which we received back in the form of ROEs that the residents gave us permission to treat their property. Also, I'm pleased to inform you, as President Spreen mentioned earlier, that the project kicked off yesterday. We have completed our second day of treatment today, covering approximately 2.5 miles so far. When you factor in the width, we've treated approximately 4 square acres during these last 2 days. And if things continue as they have over the past 2 days, I anticipate the project will be completed ahead of schedule. If you notice here on the slide, there's a couple of pictures. Those were actually taken from the treatment that we did yesterday. So you can see the difference in the treatment that we're out there performing. And that concludes
Wow.
my report. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Mhm. I wanted to bring the project to you guys since I can't put you all in my pocket and take you in the field.
Yeah. Makes me want to drive down that road tomorrow and see what's going on.
Hey, come on out. We'd love to see you.
Yeah.
All right. President Spreen, commissioners, quick update on the Elena Fremont evacuation route. This will be starting at the end of April. It is on track. The important things to note is that the participation packets are out. They went out yesterday. The postcards went out last week and the signs are along the route. So you can anticipate citizens coming up to you with questions about this route as well. We have ongoing dialogue with Gardner Bullis School. That'll be a large number of residents, parents dropping off kids. And so the integration with them, they'll be getting information through the school newsletter. So we have a one population that's very unique and large for that. So we have dialogue going on with them. The community meeting will be April 8th. Harmon mentioned his for his project. So it's an online one. It'll be April 8th at 7 o'clock. And we have upcoming then from that will be door knocking and the media release. The implementation, again, this project is to start on April 29th. Any questions?
No. It's really ambitious and aggressive. I love it. Yeah. Any public comments?
I think we still have one more evac route to go through,
Oh,
and
one
then we
more,
can
sorry.
take the, comment on all of them.
Yet another, I'm sorry. Ah, yes.
Thanks. Good evening again. So this one is in regards to the La Paloma project. Excuse me. The project's really just starting to get on its feet in the planning process, and it is set to start on the 3rd of June. The key items to note for you guys, the applications for the permits have been turned into the appropriate agencies and are currently in progress. Going forward, the participation packets will be sent out on the 18th of next month. So please be on the lookout for those if you live within the district along the La Paloma route. And the project planning process is currently on track and on time. That concludes my report.
This goes right by your house, I believe, so that you'll be getting all the information on that. On that one, does it? Oh, no, is it your one? You're not sure.
We already did that one.
Oh, sorry. Great. Any other questions? Any public comments on those?
We have a question from Seth Shelley with Fire Safe Council.
Yes.
It's not so much as a question as that we want to recognize and give a shout out to the Los Altos Hills team, particularly Virginia and the other team members. Obviously, we coordinate quite closely on these evacuation projects and appreciate your leadership and for keeping the trains running on time. So thank you for your engagement.
Great. Thank you. Always appreciate a comment like that.
Another.
Yes.
I didn't see it just now, but I saw it in the packet, the comment about the blind curve. And I thought that's something we haven't really talked about is the fuel reduction, improving visibility along the roadway. So I saw it in there. And so I just thought that was a further benefit because we have issues of traffic safety, even in good times.
Excellent. Excellent. Great. Okay. Moving on. Let's see. That takes us to item 10. As I believe. Personnel. So General Manager Logan, we're presenting item 10.
Yes, thank you, President Spreen. Item 10A is the proposed First Amendment to the Technical Data Analyst Employment Agreement, which is included in the agenda packet. California Government Code Section 54953C3 requires the Commission to orally report a summary of the proposed compensation before taking final action to adopt that compensation, hereby approving the employment agreement. The proposed First Amendment extends the term of the at-will, part-time, temporary, technical data analyst employment agreement to October 1st of 2024 and adjusts the total not to exceed compensation for those 12 months term of employment agreement, which is September 20th of 23 to October 1st of 24, to $57,600 with no additional change to compensation or benefits. And I recommend approval to that extension of term and an increase of the compensation to cover the next 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Logan. Are there any clarifying questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
CG moves.
CG moves.
Second, Danke.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? Any public comment?
I don't see any.
In that case, let's vote.
President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Moving to item 10B, General Manager Logan, you will present this one as well.
Yes, before I do that, I would like to say that technical data analyst Edgar Martinez is here, joined us tonight. I'd like you to introduce him if you haven't met him before, but he's doing a remarkable job with us part-time. And we're just very happy to have him. And the skills he brings in data analysis is amazing. And he's been very helpful in working with us on the work plans as we're trying to identify what kind of metrics we're going to use and to coordinate that and to have the spreadsheets updated and able to do. So he's working with Paige Russell, Captain Russell, and they're making a very formidable team. So thank you, Edgar, for joining us again for another 6 months. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, which is
10B.
10B. Item 10B is the proposed second amendment to the Programs Planning and Grants Manager Employment Agreement, which is included in the agenda packet. California Government Code Section 54953C3 requires the Commission to orally report a summary of the proposed compensation before taking final action to adopt that compensation, hereby approving the employment agreement. The proposed second amendment to the at-will, full-time, exempt Programs Planning and Grants Manager Employment Agreement will be effective April 1st, 2024, and includes the following compensation: wages. Annual compensation for the Programs Planning and Grant Manager in the proposed agreement is $193,440, which is equivalent to $93 per hour. Corrects the vacation accrual cap to 160 hours. There is no additional change to compensation or benefits. The proposed employment agreement does not provide holiday pay, medical benefits, or retirement benefits, and I recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Are there any clarifying questions? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion in a second. Coming from this side.
Warren moves.
Basiji second.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? Nope. Any public comments?
No.
Let's have a roll call.
Okay, President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
And the motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
And I would like to take a moment just to thank Programs Planning and Grant Manager Eugenia Woods for all that she's done for the district, and amazing amount of work that's being put together by the IHFR team as a service manager for that team. So many thanks to Eugenia, and vote of confidence from everyone for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item 11, the district clerk report.
Yes. Great. I'm just bringing you an update on the annual Form 700 Statement of Economic Interests, which is due by April 2nd, 2024. I'm very pleased to report that I only have one that's outstanding. So thank you, everybody, for getting that in a timely fashion. And for the one outstanding, there was an email sent at the end of last week, a reminder to file, and I'll follow up as well with another email.
Great. Thank you. Any questions on that? That sounds like we don't need many. And any public comments on that? I wouldn't expect any. In that case, moving on to item 12, commission member reports and future agenda items. This is an opportunity for commissioners to provide reports on any future agenda topics. I'll start with one before I ask this, just a sort of a notification that, see, we're through March now. Coming up in the next couple of meetings will be the annual performance review for general manager. Just letting you know that'll be coming. Marcy and I will be getting together to discuss what the form of that will be. We've seen several different iterations of that, and that evolves. But we may do something for next month. If not, it would certainly be in May. But I just want to give you a heads up on that. Any other comments from commissioners on future agenda topics? Sounds good. Okay. Any public comment on this?
I have one question.
Oh, yes, please.
When the letters go out for basically asking the residents that might be in violation of the WUI clear up, is that going to be reviewed here at the time it goes out? Or?
That's a good question. As a future agenda, I'll ask the next time we'll be having some of the.
Forgot the name of it. Sorry about that.
The WUI letters are June.
Of abatement violations and so forth.
County Fire should have sent the notice in February, and they have until April 1st to be compliant. And engine companies will be going out then, and then our next council member or commissioners meeting agenda item would be June.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And to correct Captain Crone, actually in May, you'll see just something to declare the public hearing for June. But so really the only action in May will be when we discuss it in June, and the public is invited to attend.
Set the date.
That's all I want. Thank you.
So we have a few months reprieve for that. Anything else? Okay, well, in that case, moving on to item 12B. This is noticed the next regular commission meeting is scheduled for April 16th, 2024, in person and hybrid at this location, the Los Altos Hills Town Chambers. Any questions from commissioners on that? Hearing none. Any public comment on that agenda item?
Don't see any.
Expecting none. We can move on to item 13, which is an adjournment. And trying to average those meetings out to better time here. This concludes the March 19th, 2024 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. The meeting is adjourned at 8:29 p.m. Emergency Services Manager Beebe, if you could please stop the recording.